Welcome to another video on just looking at software. So everyone in the description has been saying Simos 18, let's go and have a look at Simos 18, can I do Simos 18? So here it is, Simos 18. So Simos 18 was brought in around about 2014. Simos 18? I'm saying Simos 18. But about 2014 that was brought in. And it was used on, well, it's still used on the Golf R, Golf GTI, Audi S3, Leon Cupra, all those kind of cars. So let's just open one up. They're all pretty much OBD flashable as well. I know I had an issue with some, but the majority of them are all okay. So the way they look is, right, let's go to one. Let's open one with a Deimos. Now, a Deimos file is going to have an absolute bucket load of maps built into the software itself. So I'm going to find one I've tuned, so it's going to be a good, that should be quite good. Yeah, we'll go with that one. So the files themselves, pretty simple once you start looking into them. You've got all the general maps, just wait for the little WinOLS search, here we go, at the bottom. This one looks like a B-flash read. The actual structure of a Simos 18 ECU is actually this file split into two. So you would pretty much have all the ASW code in. There'll be a stop round about here. And then the second part of the ECU would have all of this here. Which is why some of the ECUs struggle with things like boot and things like that. Because when it reads them, it splits them and it's annoying. But when we flash them, it's all as one. So it's nice to have them all as one for obvious reasons. So when we're doing things like map switching and things like that, that's why we can't use some virtual reads, because it doesn't actually flash that first half. It only flashes the calibration part. So when you're not flashing the first half, it doesn't put in the bits that we need to be able to do the map switching and things like that. So that's pretty much why that is the way it is. So Simos 18 stuff, it was, when it first come out, it was quite annoying because you have all this stuff at the start, which is like limits and all that kind of stuff for like everything from like how much boost you're going to have, how much torque you're going to have. Then there's like all the limits for how much heat is going to go through it and all this kind of stuff. And you had to kind of like find your way around it to actually be able to tune the car, to even begin tuning the car. But apart from that, everything else was pretty much, it's pretty much basic as what you would get with any Bosch ECU. This is obviously a Siemens ECU. Just everything started to look a little bit different. Because obviously when you're used to tuning in Bosch, you get used to what maps look like. And then when it comes to Siemens, everything changes. Like if you remember what a pedal map looks like in Bosch, it's very much different to what a pedal map looks like in 2D to a Siemens ECU. So this is actual the pedal map, and this is pretty much where it begins. So this is a manual transmission map. It should also have an auto transmission. That's the manual one as well. There'll be auto and manual transmission maps. Obviously, it's only going to use whichever one is actually used, and there will be a switch for that as well. Or I think you could probably do it with the coding. Never tried, but it's possibly possible. So how the ECU pretty much works, like pretty much like any ECU. So whether it's be a diesel, petrol, could be anything. Everything works and starts from driver input. Because obviously, what's the point in the car doing anything else if it's not what it's asked to do? So everything starts from here, and it's pretty much a throttle position over, or throttle request over RPM with a torque request in the middle. So 1 equals 100% of torque, and it backs down depending on where this is your throttle feel. So if you see anyone advertising like they're doing a 1-to-1 throttle linear maps and things like that, this is pretty much the maps where they're messing around to kind of like get that to like 50%. They could maybe they'd set that to 50%, 40%, 30%, whatever, to make it more linear. So it kind of puts you back in time a little bit, because cable throttles used to be 1-to-1. because obviously wherever you put the pedal is wherever the cable's going to be 1-to-1. Whereas with the drive-by-wire stuff, it's not complete 1-to-1, but sometimes it can go in your favour. You can use it to like 50% is actually a little bit more, so it kind of feels a bit better. So there's ways of playing with this throttle, which gives you a lot of advantages over a cable throttle. So to tune them back to being a cable throttle, to me, is kind of the wrong way of doing it. But to make the car feel 100% better using the throttle pedal and the feel using this table is the way to go, because that's what it's designed for. So everything starts with the throttle tables. Next, there's a bit of rail pressure there, I think, remember rightly. Yeah, rail pressure again looks nothing like what we used to in like Bosch. Everything looks different, and what I find with Simos 18 as well, nothing's ever in like an order, because with a lot of the Bosch stuff, everything's kind of in order. So you get like your throttle tables, fuel tables, torque tables, boost tables, but it pretty much goes like that in all Bosch ECUs. Whereas this, it's mishmash. Like you might have one Simos 18 where everything's at the start, you might have another one where it's at the end, like, or it could be in the middle, it could be anywhere. It's like they couldn't decide where to put it, so they just chucked it anywhere. We've also got, am I an 8-bit, not 16-bit, so it's a 16-bit ECU. You've got there's a lot of PID system, a lot of boost tables. Wastegate, these are wastegate, again, they look nothing like Bosch. So wastegate tables are pre-emptied, so they are like, they're targeting something before something happens and they run off a PID system. It's pretty much the simplest way of doing it. So these are your wastegate tables, which are quite annoying because what the axis is referenced isn't something that is physical but calculated. It is like exhaust gas pressure and turbine speed and things like that all go into the actual actuator tables. You can change this, and Vehicle actually offer a patch so you can make these make sense. So you can say with like big turbo builds and that, I do the patch because you can have RPM over throttle position, which makes more sense than what they've done as an OEM. So you can change things. Don't think that, you know, just because that's how it is laid out, that's how it's got to be. That's kind of where the fun comes in, when you start making things your own. You've got, this is a handy table for those who are doing tuning. So if you want to cap the boost at any point or to do different things like via RPM, this table is a good table to use for that. I use it quite often. So you have basically, this is basically a maximum boost that the ECU will let you do, even if you like requested more torque, load, whatever. This will this will actually cap the boost to a certain point, so you can set this to how you like. So it's quite useful for that. I see a lot of people just max this out, but it's actually better to actually do this unless you can actually work all your airflow tables. And if you've seen how many airflow tables there are, you will probably see why I do what I do. So you've got a put table. So these are boost capped by put, which is just here. This is like another boost limit, but nothing will ever go above this limit no matter what you do. So it's obviously something else you've got to move. You've obviously got lots of tables, but I only really want to break down the ones that you actually can use for tuning. I mean, I can delve more into this stuff when it's got the car and the dyno, because I always find it makes more sense when you're showing someone physically than just telling them about it. I could be telling you anything right now. You also have... Alright, let's get to the airflow tables. You'll know when you see them. Here's timing. So timing tables, there's loads of them. And the timing tables depend on the position of the cams. So open, closed, to know which one you have. Minimum timing tables, which obviously everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, pops and bangs. So yeah, you do need to touch on those for pops and bangs. More timing tables can mean, why wouldn't you want more? Like, I always know that when you're in the second lot of minimum timing tables, these will be your actual timing that you're actually going to use when you come to tuning and things like that. There's a group of them there. You'd have to do them all. There's actually a small group. If you're not sure which group it is, adjust the timing, find out, come back. There's all the other tables based on timing for use fuel quality and things like that. So if you're running crap fuel, low run, correction table, it will drop into these correction tables and start pulling timing away from you. So it's kind of a bit of a safety. I do actually raise this table when you're doing tuning. So if you're running like a bigger turbo and things like that, and you're tuning on 99 run on that day, you're not kind of guaranteed that customer's going to go away. And it's kind of like bad to assume that the customer's going to go away and just stick to 99 run or whatever's in your country. So I do use this table to add a little bit of safety. So if they're running like, if they come in 99, but my lowest in the country could be 91, then I'll be adding a fair bit to this table, just as a safety. So then if the ECU just pick up that, hang on, there must be a low run, but kind of based on the knock sensors, the feedback from those, if they do see that, it will remove more timing just to protect the engine, because obviously more boost, you're better off taking away a little bit more timing just to protect the engine. And then if the customer rings up and says, oh, my car feels a bit slower, it probably is just because he's put crap fuel in. So it's not everyone understands the whole fuel is good for an engine kind of concept. So it's always good to have. You have soy. start tables, so efficiency injection time and things like that. These are, well, a lot of these have 8 injectors, some only have 4, but or some, I don't think I've ever come across 4 MPI, but I think there are out there. There is 8, so you've got 4 GDI, 4 MPI. MPI is port injection, GDI is obviously the injectors inside the engine. With the GDI, you kind of treat them like a diesel, so they have a start SOI, so start of injection, duration of injection, and then you've got your AFR target. So they kind of work like diesels in that sense. And then MPI work like port injections. You've got like a longer window for those because you're not injecting straight into the cylinder, you're injecting into the port. So good upgrade on these is port injectors. Just make them drive so much better because the stock ones are only small at 210 cc's, so handy to get rid of. So here we have the knock detection threshold. This is for each cylinder. Obviously you're gonna have 8. You haven't got 8 cylinders, so why are you tuning goal 8 for? I've seen people do that, and you don't need to. Just tune the one and don't worry about the others. It'll sit in one. There's like 2 groups, I think, and it'll sit in whichever it needs. You shouldn't really be touching these unless you've started changing engine internals, because what this basically is it's like the reference sound of what the knock sensor should make if it actually sees knock. So if you change the harmonics of the engine, then you do have to adjust these, but you need to adjust them with deck cans. So set them up with deck cans, come back to this table, set it up. If not, leave it alone. Next in line, we should have a million load tables. There's other tables, but not really anything. There we go. These are basically your kind of boost request tables, but they can request a load. Now, these tables made me laugh at the start when everyone started tuning these cars, because everyone would keep referencing MAF. Now, these cars don't have a MAF sensor physical. They have like a calculated MAF. So when people are referencing MAF saying, oh, it's got a broken MAF, it's done this, it's done that, it's like, they haven't got a MAF. Like this is like a calculation table for airflow. And this is how the ECU kind of works out the boost. So it basically takes an airflow out to what kind of boost you need to what torque. So if you're requesting 400 Newton meters, it knows it needs to pump in that much air to make the 400 Newton meters. If you want 475, it's 475. Now, the OEM didn't do a lot of this work for us. They've, as you can see, about 475 is kind of calculated. Anything after that is just set to a fixed number, because obviously the table can take it, but they just haven't bothered setting that up for obvious reasons. And that there is a load cap on these ECUs, so you will hit that quite quick, and then you have to go over it, and then you have to set your torque tables up and all that kind of stuff. So that's those. If you want to raise the boost without doing anything else, you just want to play with the Golf R, S3, Leon, you have your own, whatever. But these tables that you kind of come to play with that. So if you raise that, it will raise the boost to meet that. But obviously bear in mind, if you go over the 400 Newton meters, you could start cutting the throttle. So it's a bit of a tedious thing. There's a bunch of these as well, and they are based on different cam positions and stuff like that. And then we have another group of tables which kind of go hand in hand with those, which is kind of like your optimum torque, so indicated engine torque reference condition. Name slightly different, means the same thing. And these basically have load converted to torque. So this is kind of like how the ECU calculates the torque, and this is where a lot of people used to get around the DSGs. Before we could get into the DSGs and raise the torque, what we used to do is confuse the ECU to thinking that we're doing less torque than we're actually doing by the airflow, by numbing these tables down a bit. So if you take like 10% off this table, then you would numb it down to be running 10% less torque, even though you're running more boost. So it kind of like a confusion table. Now that is bad for DSG. It actually makes the DSGs quite lazy. So if you've got a DSG car running on a Simos 18 ECU and you've been driving it and it feels a bit lazy in the shifts and things like that, or you haven't had your DSG tuned with the engine or whatever, you could find that these tables have been touched on and it's making your DSG drive a bit crap. Now there's no way you could really tell, because one, you can't read these ECUs unless you boot them, and you need the tools to be able to boot them, to be able to read them. So you're better off just taking it somewhere where they can actually tune it properly, but you will probably be paying again. So it's a bit of a pain in the bum, but it is what it is. So if these tables have been touched on, you're going to have really slow DSG changes. It's just because it's torque based and the ECU is lying to the DSG box basically. Next up we have, so these are like your safety tables, like your safety area for like different temperatures and things like that. Coolant temp, should be intake temp. Then you have torque request. So this is kind of like, this kind of comes from the pedal and it's geared. So when people, you can do like boost by gear and all sorts in these tables really, because you have an RPM, you have an input from the actual clutch, and then you've got, this is kind of like the limit. So in the different gears, so 100% in the throttle tables would mean that you could request 350 Newton meters. It's pretty much across the board in stock form. They just leveled it off in 1st to 8th gear. Obviously they don't all have gate gears, but they always leave a bit of meat in there just in case. Some do. I think 7 gears is the highest. Can't remember. But these are kind of like your torque limit tables. Not so much of a request. The request is in the throttle, but these are actually your limit that throttle can do. So if you're running, say if you're at 50% throttle and it's only like 0.6 on that factor table with the throttle table we looked at first, it's only going to give you 60% of 350 Newton meters. That makes sense? Cool. So if you're 100% throttle, it's going to give you all of the torque. So these need to be set up to everything else. And of course, the limit of these would also sit into the limit of the airflow table. So if you want to run more airflow, you're going to have to run more torque as well. Everything's got to be in line, or you'll get throttle closures, you'll get all sorts of bad headaches. So again, there's different ones for different, there is actually more involved in these, but you've got auto, so the auto box. You'll have an overall, which is usually the M1, and then you've got eco. So the torque you can have in eco is obviously going to be a little bit lower, and then you've got your manual boxes, and then right at the end, it's gone too far, standard. Right at the end there is a overall one, which is this one here. So maximum allowed indicated torque at full load, fault torque limitation. So this one has to be touched on and has to be higher than the rest. So otherwise you can start getting issues. I basically, when I'm tuning these, I basically set all these to max and I just tune it off that one because it's the one it's going to use anyway. Then you've got part scavenging. There's loads of tables that are going to be in here that you're never going to use, like VVT. So you've got your variable valve lift. This is on the camshaft position port flap, valve flap lift dependent. So it's obviously where your flap's going to be based on position of the cams. And then you've got, I think that's about it really. That's kind of like touched on the small parts of it. Now, pops and bangs is always pretty simple. The only thing you've got to watch is the switch. If I go to all the maps, and these have got their own built-in impulse combustion. I can't read what I'm actually typing because I've got a little box that's in the way. Right, I spelled impulse wrong. Standard pulse combustion. Now, impulse combustion mode is actually built in to the actual software anyway, so it's like the pops and bangs and all that kind of stuff. And there is actually, like for sport mode, you've got how long you can keep that fuel run on for. So you'd up this, reduce it for normal, set the switch. There's enable, that one's already on. So there's a switch for the P and B as well and all sorts. And there's also a bit mask for, I think I've just seen it, different driving modes. So obviously you'd set that. It's normally 255, so you can get it on when you're sitting standstill and all that kind of stuff. But apart from that, that's pretty much Simos 18. Now, I wouldn't recommend entirely tuning one of these straight from a Deimos because it can get quite confusing. You would be better off getting a map pack from Stage X or something like that. So let me just show you what I do. Actually have to get one at the minute because I'm actually tuning one. Let's have a look. I'm currently tuning one which I'm going to have to get a map pack for. So it makes sense to me to open one which I'm actually going to use. So I've been using like a pack and transferring, but it's actually easier like this. So what we're going to do, go to solutions. You go over to Stage X, you fill out the details, and you pay like a monthly thing to use their site. Then what you also get then is like a WinOLS plugin. So go to Power Division, and then you can get a locked quality map pack from Power Division for 22 credits. 22 credits works out to about €22. Now, considering a Deimos for one of these when it first come out was about £1,000 up. I mean, that's pretty cheap. That doesn't really like give you a lot. It just gives you all the maps, but then you've got to find out everything yourself. Whereas, let me show you what these guys give you. So you've got 22 credits by. This is how fast it is as well. I'm not speeding nothing up. So that's all in now. You can see the little blue sections. So now I go Control K, It's now gives me, let's close all folders, everything laid out. So you've got your boost control diagnostics, boost pressure, dwell time, engine coolant temp, engine torque limiters, torque request, exhaust gas pressure, fuel corrections. It's actually gave it all in like folders and laid out. Now you can get quite far in these map packs. I've done, I know other stuff in there that they don't give you, but the majority of the stuff is there. And to be fair, the stuff I touch on, you probably wouldn't need to touch on until you're a bit more experienced with the ECU anyway. So there is plenty there for you to go with and run with. So I would recommend, like, if you're new to WinOLS and you're new to kind of like tuning in WinOLS and things like that, it's the best platform to use, but you don't get anything out the block. You do need extra things to do that with, and StageX kind of gives you that. You can just use their map pack straight from their site, but I find WinOLS is a lot easier to use than the StageX site. Plus I can use this offline. I work out in the sticks, so if I'm out on the road and I'm tuning the car, Wi-Fi isn't always great for me unless I go and get out the Starlink or something like that, which takes time. So it's a lot handier just to have that offline program where you can just do things and adjust things and do what you need to do. So it does give you everything. It gives you the map sensor scaling, knock, launch control settings, which a lot of them is in the DSG anyway. Pops and bangs, sport display cal, throttle control, monitoring. It's pretty much all there. So I would recommend that to pretty much anyone. Obviously, it doesn't break everything down, so it's not going to tell you what cam position for the injection timing and things like that. It's not going to tell you. So if we go to ignition time maps, it's just going to say basic, minimum, optimum, basic, minimum, optimum. It's not going to say inject. Like if you're working from the FRF, it's not going to tell you which table that actually is, because these actually have names at the end. So it could be like basic ignition angle 0, 1, 1, which could mean that it's VVT's open or closed or whatever else. But to begin with, it's plenty. It's loads for people to play with and mess around with. I hope this kind of gives everyone a bit more of a clue into a Simos 18 ECU. Obviously, if you want me to delve into certain aspects of the Simos 18 ECU or any other ECU, could be MEN 17, MG1, EDC 17, 16, 15, ME7, whatever, just like shout out, let me know in the comments and I'll have a look for you. Hope this video is better sound, because I've actually got a DJI mic sat up behind the laptop and I've got a DJI here to kind of like get that set up. So let's hope that's better. And please like, subscribe, because it really helps me on the channel. I've got some cool things coming up, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Just let me know what you want to see in that comment section. Thank you.